It's Happy Hour Friday. Jason Fitz, Spain and Fitz. Been enjoying hearing them guys back together. A lot to get into. He joins us here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. He, like all guests, appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And there's a couple of nights there, Jay, that I guess that you were supposed to have the night off, and then you kind of got pulled into active duty because of some unforeseen things. But I'll get your take. It affected you. You know, you guys were supposed to be off, and all of a sudden, hey, the games are canceled. You're back on. What were some of the reactions you were hearing on your show, coast to coast, with, I'm imagining, depending on where these messages were coming in from, everybody had a lot of different feelings about the way that things were going the last 2 days.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And by the way, all this happy hour talk, man, that's the one thing that stinks about being on late Friday. My happy hour doesn't start till very late at night tonight, but I appreciate that. It's fine.
You could always do it before.
Yeah.
I think Sarah would frown on that, and we all know that she can take my butt. So, there's got to know my spot there. No, I think when it comes to the reaction, stunned is not a I'm not overblowing it. I think even our bosses, to be real, there's this moment where you're right. We thought one night, for example, we were only going to be on for 30 or 45 minutes, and all of a sudden it was, no, wait, guys, there's no games tonight. And, last night we even talked to Dwayne Casey, the Pistons head coach, and he even admitted that he was surprised. I mean, we haven't seen an NBA game where there was this sort of a protest in 50 years. So I think it's really sort of had everybody looking at it saying, holy cow, we've been so focused on COVID. The players told us when they came into the bubble that they didn't want to have their voices silenced. And if they feel like they are being silenced, then, they're going to stop the world and make sure that they have some control over their platform. And I respect the heck out of it. And I think it's incredible. I also think it's been crazy to see how unprepared everybody was for this very distinct possibility.
Yeah, and I guess the one question that a lot of people are wondering is how the events of this last couple of days will change not only the NBA, but professional sports. We saw hockey decide not to play. We saw some baseball teams, not all baseball teams, make the decision. We saw that wonky thing with the Mets where it looked very contrived. But how will these events change professional sports, if at all?
I think there's a sign of how good relationships are in some places, right? But I think with the NBA, let's keep in mind, the NBA actually could have, with the Bucks starting this, they could have not only fined players, they could have resulted in a forfeiture. They could actually come in and start renegotiating the collective bargaining agreement right now. Like, there are huge ramifications they could have had. Instead, the NBA postponed everything because they also realized that if they don't handle this the right way, not only will it hurt their relationship in the future with the players for negotiations, but everybody can just opt out and go home, right? So that's a weird spot to be in. So I don't know that the cat's never going to go back in the bag on this. And I think the biggest thing that we've seen about the change in tone from sports comes from the Baltimore Ravens, of all places, yesterday. Remember, this is a team that really, when they did at one point bring in Kaepernick and they were talking about it, their response at the time, their owner's response is, we need to pray about this and really think about it. Well, last night the Ravens put out a very succinct statement with specific things that they want to see happen, as action. And they're doing that because they are they're echoing the voice of their players. And we've never seen teams and players uniting this way for one common message and social change. So, I don't think this is going away. And for anybody that's like, oh, we just need to get games and these conversations will stop, I don't think that's the case at all. I think the NFL sort of dodged a bullet because they were able to cancel some practices. But what if something like that had happened on a Saturday? Could we be looking at the same thing from NFL players? I don't know that you can squarely say no to that anymore. And that shows you the difference in the sports world.
Do you think, it's funny you brought up the NFL, do you think that this changes how maybe the NFL looks at things as well? And what I mean by that is Deshaun Jackson a couple days ago or yesterday was pretty actively speaking about how you look at the NBA, it's a brotherhood, the way that they come together, it is one unity with the NBA, and he was claiming the NFL doesn't feel that way. It's almost as if everyone's kind of doing their own thing. Do you think these NFL players now realize, hold on a second, we can come together more than we are now?
Yes, and look, I've laughed before about what I always call NBA mentality, and that's, comes down to, I'm not going to play for this team, I'm going to play for that team, I'm going to affect my own destiny. They've done it better than other athletes have in other sports. I think what's happened is there's an empowerment that sort of hit everybody in every level of sport at this point, and that's why you look at the words of Deshaun Jackson. I don't think he's alone. I think a lot of players are looking around right now saying, hey, we have a platform. How can we use it, and how can we make a difference? And that's just, again, that's such a different mentality than we've seen in the past. And the NFL, let me be a little cynical for a second, because let's be clear. I think NFL owners only speak when it benefits their bottom line. So I can be cynical enough to admit that it probably didn't benefit their bottom line in their eyes a few years ago to speak on these things. And now it's become so accepted to do in so many different markets that it becomes easier for teams to speak out. But, I mean, I'll look at an area you guys know I know well with Nashville. I was stunned to see the Titans put out a statement, a video from their players where Ryan Tannehill, their quarterback, starts in part in the statement, I'm paraphrasing slightly, says that we are a country that was born under the guise of racial inequality. I mean, that's not the sort of thing you would ever expect to see or hear from a quarterback of a team in the South in the NFL. So I think that speaks to the change that's going on right now.
Jason Fitz, Spain and Fitz. It's 7 to 9 right here on 97.3 ESPN. You'll hear them tonight. And obviously, when you're getting ready for this show tonight, I'm interested in what are some of the things that are standing out right now as, you guys are on the air in about 4.5 hours.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a really fair question, because I have moved so much of my mind to great. Now we got games to talk about, and that's just being real in who I am. You guys know that's the way I always am. Like, I'm looking at it saying, where's our sports angle? And this is great. We've got a lot of opportunity. Now with that gone, I mean, I think there's a couple of things we know are going to dominate the conversation. Has the NFL turned a page in the way that they handle these things? It's going to be part of what I know we'll talk about tonight. And then the other side of it is the college football world, which I know is rocked right now more by COVID-19 and the Big Ten, the decisions they're making. But I think the common thread between all of it is there's a different amount of accountability being demanded now by athletes. So you can't just say this is what we're doing and accept it anymore. I mean, athletes are going to ask why and how. And if you don't have suitable answers, whether it's about social justice or it's about player health and safety or it's about the decision to play football games, players are going to ask tough questions, and they're not just going to roll over and take the answers. So I know we're going to talk about that a lot tonight, because that's one common thread we're seeing across all of sports.
Yeah, this Big Ten thing is very interesting, where all of a sudden the coaches and the what is it? The coaches and the league presidents or something are coming together about possibly playing the Big Ten football games around Thanksgiving Day. Is that what the latest is? And then, you already have some conferences playing earlier in the year, so it still seems like you're going to have a really watered-down, wonky college football season.
Yeah, no doubt. And the Big Ten, there are multiple reports out from multiple sites today saying that the Big Ten essentially canceled, thinking that by canceling football that they'd be able to stand up and plant the flag and say, hey, we did it first, we care the most, and everybody would follow suit. Now that nobody's followed suit other than the Pac-12 when it comes to the Power 5, now that the rest of the conferences haven't followed suit, it definitely feels today like college football, like the Big Ten particularly, is backpedaling to the pressure from players and families. And, I mean, when's the last time we saw that level of power from a college football player? So, it's a different world. Like, for all that has changed in 2020, the one thing that I think in the sports world will not go back to normal anytime soon is that athletes found their voice and they know they can use it. And that's a different level of accountability, especially at the college level, because now when coaches say things that players don't think are true, they have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of social media followers that are listening to their voice. So that's a change. And now the Big Ten, if they do turn around and play football, they're not going to look like they were heroic in this process. They're going to look like they bent to pressure and made a decision that wasn't qualified to begin with. So, and all that comes from player pressure. That's interesting to me.
It sure is. It's an interesting time. Spain and Fitz tonight at 7. They'll have more. Jason Fitz, at Jason Fitz on Twitter. He joins us via the Boardwalk Honda hotline each week as we really get a chance to look at the national landscape of things. And we always appreciate the time, man. Have a good happy hour Friday.
You know what? I'll have a pina colada as soon as we finish the show. Y'all have a great weekend. Thanks for having me.
You do the same. And he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.